Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey Dale, I'm kind of thirsty right now,
Yeah, I would
but
suggest you not
I
to.
don't. It doesn't look like I'd want to drink any of the water that you got.
Yeah, this is kind of dirty water here, and Mike's sitting in front of a backdrop that I don't know if he's really going to be safe sitting that close to the river. We have an interesting show for you tonight. A number of people have been waiting to hear some numbers from what happened when the Fielder Dam was taken out. That dam was there for about 80 years, and just recently, just a few days ago, it was finally taken down. And wouldn't you think that somebody would have considered taking all that silt that was behind there and removing it as if it was toxic waste? Because apparently it was and is. And so people have been waiting for some kind of report about this. And they'd also probably like to say, well, what are the current numbers near the water filtration plant that comes into Grants Pass? And how would that compare with something else that's coming? Because you need that baseline or you're not going to know if there's a difference. Well, not quite sure we have that. What? Yeah, turns
Right.
out maybe we don't have that. Okay, that's interesting. So in this case, the county commissioners, we've mentioned to you many times in the past that their Thursday meeting is where all the action happens. That's where people come in and they make the reports, and then the commissioners decide what they're going to do next, and then they make a ceremony of it on Wednesday. But they just recently decided that that they're going to only keep putting their Wednesday meetings on. They're not going to do anything more, probably pretty much even if we give it to them as a gift. They don't want it. They don't want to put but we'll talk about that another time. We're going to talk about Fielder Dam today. So the fellow that you're going to see reporting to the commissioners was brought in by the health director, um, Diane, and she didn't tell anyone in the public that this was going to happen. So there was almost no one in the audience. Once again, I mean, you and I were there with the camera, but that's it. And so this fellow shows up. His name is Eric Shaftsma. Eric Shaftsma is with the Grants Pass Water Lab, right? Now, before, you're so used to seeing on our show people from departments making reports and excuses to the county government. This guy is not part of county government. So anything that you may think is somebody's fault, it's not Eric's fault, because he runs an independent for-profit water lab. So he suggested, you'll see, we're going to play the tape for you so that you can see everything that he said. This is new. Nobody else knows this. As far as I know, nobody else knows it. You're the first ones to hear it. Well, except for me sitting in the room. And so I talked to him briefly afterwards. I'll tell you what happened so that you don't miss this part. And so I called him and I said, we'd love to have you on our show. Well, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to talk about it now. Okay. Well, I appreciate that study. And by the way, everybody, I paid to get the study from the county. They were given this guy gave them numbers, which he's going to say all the numbers. It's not like the numbers, if you look at them, you're going to find out anything different. He's going to say all the numbers during the audio part of this. But as Simon Hare said, it's going to cost you a lot of money, Mr. Matthews, to keep up with what we're doing. And so I paid to get the report to see what it was that he was talking about, and it's the same as what you're going to hear. Anyway, I said to the fellow, I said, well, what we'd like to do is we'd like to talk to you just like you did with the commissioners and have you explain where we are up to this point. Long pause. Well, no, I don't think I'm ready to do that. He said, but I don't want you to make anything of it. So nobody make anything of this about the fact that I don't want to talk about it now. Well, you got to figure this guy wants to make some money off of this thing. Yes, he's a for-profit company. And so he's already sold the results to another client. But here's a chance to sell this to the county government. So it's going to take him about 10 days to come up with the grand proposal of how much he wants the county to pay him to give them a report about what's going on with our water. He's not going to tell you for free like we do. We give you everything that we get. We pay for it and then give it to you just for free. A couple of the TV stations are probably watching this report tonight.
Now,
go ahead, Mike.
Well, let me ask you, is he going to be doing more work? Is he going to be doing a more expansive study and taking samples in different places? Or is he just going to take the results that he already has and regenerate another report? Why would we do that? We already have this here.
We don't know what he's going to do, but the commissioners will pay. You know they will. They always do.
Okay. And
there probably won't be any way they'll ever know.
Yeah, there may be more to this story.
Yeah. But he's going to make some bucks off of this. Okay. Good luck. Anyway, I said, well, maybe you could give us an interim report. No, as they said, no. And I said, well, we'd be real interested in talking to you about this, but let me ask you just this question, if I may. Do you have any idea, so we can tell people tonight, because this just happened today, and it's a lot of work to get it ready for you the same day. You know that. And we'll put out a full, beautiful, high definition, beautiful audio version so that you can watch that without us talking about it, okay? And we'll do that as quickly as we can. Tonight's going to be pretty good. We'll give you excellent either later tonight or tomorrow. And you can watch that then, in the comfort of your home. And I said, can you give us any idea so we can tell people how much further down the line is it potential that the Grants Pass water filtration, the Grants Pass itself, might be in some kind of danger for what you were talking about? Because he was talking about dangerous chemicals. Well, I really don't feel comfortable telling you that. I said, okay. How about, can you give us this idea? You went and did these tests. How much further upstream can we go up the Rogue River before, because he was testing that, and what he was saying, I don't think he wanted to drink that, and like this. And I said, how much further upstream could one possibly go before you might say, you know what, I don't think I'd dip your cup in the water and drink it at this point. Long pause. No, I don't think I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So, we will share with you what we have, and I think that you're going to find it pretty interesting. Mike, you want to start that?
Okay.
Thanks for letting me come in this morning. When Fielder Creek was notched on August 13th, I got a call from a client saying, whoa, what's going on? Anyways, so then it turned into a kind of a scramble. We contacted Senator Berchiger and Representative Wilson and his staff, and we tried to get a hold of Representative Stark, was unable to reach him. Anyways, and also ex-Representative Anderson, they all were very insistent we get out there and get some samples. We don't have a baseline for what's behind the dam, and that's the biggest issue that we're concerned with at this time is what's behind the dam. And the report that I had reviewed on behalf of the county's legal I think it was the end of last year that I reviewed it, was a sedimentary sample which was really insufficient in their probe. From talking with one of them this past week, they made a lot of assumptions. Oh, if it's not there, it's not here. And they didn't do a thorough investigation of what was being retained behind the dam before they were going to take it out. Anyway, so I got there, and they had just taken 3 feet off the top, and the turbidity in the creek was substantial. Anyway, so if you look at your report, and the first one, sample number is 215-03194. That one was taken 75 feet below the dam at a place where I could get across the creek and be able to take a aqueous sample. This is of the water that was coming off the dam. Now this is just, the morning of its first release. So the results were the aluminum And these levels, I mean, they're elevated for drinking water. Turbidity was pretty high and so forth. But obviously the big concern is, okay, what's going to be coming as it comes down? So then we flip over to the next.
Help me there. But we got aluminum, we've got EPA. Is this the recommended? This is 200.7.
That's the method, the scientific method by which we run it.
Okay. And then the LOQ is?
That's the limit of the instrumentation to report. I can't report below that number.
Okay.
I can see below it, but I can't report below it.
Okay.
And then the results is what was in the sample.
Right. Okay. And how do we know, for us who are not in this industry, how do I know that, ooh, this is a red light of concern?
Because this is surface water, it has different standards. The concern is for the people on Evans Creek and eventually people in Grants Pass.
He never answered Keith's question.
Gravity flows downhill.
Right.
Eventually it's going to be going past the screens at the Grants Pass water treatment plant. So that's why it's important for us to know at the beginning what the heck is potentially going to be coming downstream.
Okay, so my question on that is, do you have a baseline then for here so that you know what this is before anything gets here? Because if we
That's a
don't have a
good question.
baseline here, what purpose or what benefit would a test be afterwards if we don't have a baseline here?
I can talk to Jason and I'm sure we can get a sample.
There's no baseline.
Because getting,
You're going to say it.
for
You're going to
instance,
say it all over again.
the baseline that we
Well-
have here from what was released.
Just to pause for a second, I would be amazed if they didn't have a baseline at the plant, because I had a private water system in California. In other words, I supplied like 17 or 18 rental units, and I had to have a baseline at any given time. I had to have my water tested for ungodly things, benzene, for crying out loud. There'd be no way benzene could possibly get into the to the well, and yet I would have to test for just a ton of stuff, and that, as a private guy. So if Grants Pass City doesn't have a baseline at that plant, wow. That's a story.
Let me ask you this question, not to be too hard on this guy, but he is talking to them and he would like to have a study paid for by the county.
Uh-huh.
If you were running a water lab, the water lab in Grants Pass, you would also have no idea, not what the baseline is. You don't even know if there is a baseline. Really?
Well, I don't know. I mean, is he the contractor that the city goes to test samples?
I don't know, but even if he's not, people are going to come in with their water. He needs to know what the baseline is. I mean,
Right.
that's a basic thing if you're going to have a business. I'm not trying to be too hard on him, but the idea that he doesn't even know if there is a baseline or he's get this, but doesn't know what it is, that just doesn't. That's
However, most people are not dipping into the Rogue for their drinking water at their house. What they're doing is they're pulling a sample out of a well and having the guy test it so that they know what's in their well water, so that they can then either filter it out or not worry if it's not an issue. And
I'm just telling everybody that if Mike Jones was running a water lab, he would know what that was and not have to say, well, I don't know.
Yes, but the baseline is, when you're talking about the baseline, you're talking about the baseline in the river at the point at which it comes into the water treatment plant.
Which
and
people have been talking about. They've been talking about this for years. Alan Ayers is one of the people. Hexavalent chromium, all this chromium.
Right. Sure.
Oh, brother. I mean, and of course they've got a baseline. Of course there is one. We're going to find out about this probably in about 10 days or so. We hope. But there's more to the tape. I'm glad he's given them the information. It's just that, some of it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's okay.
And then here's another factor, Dale, is that depending on what time of year it is, that baseline is going to be totally different.
That makes some sense. Yeah. And it would be nice to know when it's coming also. I mean, there's another question.
How far away is this thing? It's not that far off. I mean, and if you got water flowing, I mean, how long does it take water to go down this little tributary and hit the river and then come down to the intake there.
Well, you see, he's talking about two things here, or he will, as soon as we stop talking.
Yeah, for crying out loud.
There's sediment, which is going to eventually end up down here,
Mhm.
but there's also water, obviously, and he's talking about some stuff floating on top of the water, and, it's
Right.
late to be waiting for that. That's got to be here and gone by now, right? Or
Well,
still coming.
And he was talking about a very high turbidity situation there,
Yes.
where the water is very cloudy with the stuff, and that stuff already left.
Yes.
So I mean, that stuff went by us, I'm sure, already. So I don't know. Anyway,
Water does have this tendency to flow.
yes, downhill, and payday is on Friday. So
Yep.
Here we go.
If this intake down here, or the river here where water is taken out, is already approaching that, so then there would not be an increase. I mean, it would just be the same thing. But if we have something that is lower than that, and this comes down and shows then we have a greater amount, then we would have something we need to be concerned about.
Correct.
So we should be concerned if it's high anyway, but what I'm saying is we don't have a baseline here. How will we know how what's coming down affects it?
So what Eric and I have kind of talked about procedurally is, and he's pulling together a proposal, is to establish a baseline at the dam site removal, a baseline here, so we can monitor what's happening with that sediment as it comes down the Rogue River.
Okay.
And so his proposal will be ready.
We'll have it together September 8th, and then I can come and present that to you guys
Oh, great.
at that time.
Good. Nice, yeah.
All right, so that was the first test, was in the water, 75 feet below the dam. The second test was taking sample ID numbers at the top left corner of the page. Is for 215-03195. That was a sediment scraping that I took a quarter mile upstream from the dam. Again, this is on the surface of the reservoir bottom. So it is a sediment sample. But at the top, there's elevated levels of the aluminum. Arsenic is over the EPA limit. There's a number of other potential contaminants there. We were testing it for mercury. I showed trace mercury, and there was concern about the old mine upstream that purportedly was a uranium mine, and we did show trace uranium also in that scraping.
Oh, that's lovely.
Then,
Pardon my stupidity. The LQ, that is the allowable level?
no.
No!
That's limit of quantification.
You've already asked that.
I can only give numbers above that. So for instance, on aluminum, it's 0.04 parts per million. I can only report above that.
Okay.
I can't report below. So then the next test, which was taken the day after, they had knocked out the west side of the dam all the way down to the bottom. This is not the center of the ancient flow channel. It's off onto the west side, but I was able to get 2 samples on that day. This is the second day. One was of the water flowing on top of the bedrock coming out from the sediment. And those numbers, the sample on that day looked really clean. And the numbers were okay. Probably arsenic was around the same. Aluminum are lower than, I believe, the first.
Wait for it.
It was lower than that which was suspended in the water below the dam after the first day. But that same day, I also took a sediment scraping on the upside of the dam abutment, and
And they don't have the results.
no, we
for
do.
that.
I do.
No, they don't have.
Oh, you don't have it. Oh, this
I didn't
was-
get it when
Okay.
I came to your office.
Okay, I apologize. Anyways, so if you look at your reports, do you think the aluminum in the aqueous sample was at 20 parts per million? In the sediment sample, it was 17,065 parts per million. The arsenic, which was at 7 parts per billion, is 21.1 parts per million. So we're talking about 3 magnitudes higher in the sediment sample. And then the other one that was concerned was the chromium that I was seeing coming out in the sediment. it wasn't qualified for hexavalent. I didn't speciate the chromium for CR3 and CR6. It was the total chromium, and that's also a concern that we have coming down the watershed. I know that I was hired a number of years ago to do a watershed analysis from Lost Creek down past Grants Pass, and we were showing a trending of the hexavalent chromium from Lost Creek down south, but we're talking in parts, per billion, small numbers, but we're looking at a sediment sample which has much higher numbers in parts per million. That's just okay, we need to watch this because this could become an issue for us downstream over time. Iron levels were through the roof. So that was on the 14th. So that was the day after that was the day they broke the dam all the way down to the base on the west side.
Hey, Mike, stop for a second, please.
I had the
Okay, so it's important to hear that. First of all, we're talking about sediment, and we're not talking about the water necessarily. Of course,
Right.
Water flows over the sediment, so that's not good. The other thing that's really important about it was saying, when he first said it, I thought, did I hear that right? It went from 7 to 21. Well, that's not good. It's 3 times as much. No. It went from 7 parts per billion to 21 parts per million.
Yeah, that's a whole different magnitude.
That's what, 3,000 times instead of 3 times as much?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a different
so
deal.
that's a huge deal. Sorry to interrupt it, but I want to be sure
Oh, no
that you
worries.
guys are hearing this, what he's actually saying. Okay, go ahead, Mike, please.
some other samples been brought in from over the weekend, which I was authorized by the owner of those results to share them with you, and it was showing a number of things. The color had changed dramatically in the stream bed from that first day where it was running clear, and I can present those to you at our next meeting in photography. So you can see it. It was running clear the first day, but by the weekend, everything was running red. I believe a lot of that was the iron release that was coming out from underneath the dam is being, for the first time in 80 years, having a chance to be oxidized. And so that's discoloring the water. But also, what is fascinating is I was there 2 days ago at the site, and we were checking the sheen that was on the water. There's a lot of discussion with people in the area. Is this, petroleum sheen, or is it bacteriological? And I was able to ascertain that it's a bacteriological sheen. Iron is a great nutrient for bacteria, and they're in Hawaii on the luau right now, I think, because they're enjoying eating all that iron. But that's going to be a problem for people downstream, just because iron bacteria is a very pernicious organism, which will have no problem clogging filters and impacting the irrigation apparatus for people downstream. Then we have some other samples that were brought in, and again, they're showing the aluminum and arsenic levels. Calcium, the chromium levels stayed pretty consistent, pretty high. Iron, manganese, and then the uranium. I'm still showing uranium trace, but I'm not seeing much mercury.
So for share with the commissioners what some of the health concern is related to the aluminum piece.
Well, aluminum is
Get this.
It's been tied to Alzheimer's, and there's been a number of examples in the county where we've had residents on their groundwater supply showing with high aluminum levels, and this is unfortunately after the person who lived in the house passed, and they're all trying to figure out, well, why on earth, was he having difficulties with his mental cognitive skills? And then they realized that it was after they passed and they sold the property, and they did a more expensive test that it was probably closely associated with the accelerated or elevated aluminum levels, and that's something that we don't want our residents to have to deal with if we can avoid it in any way.
Mike, can you pause for a second?
Also,
Yeah.
Now, this at first I'm listening to this and, well, he does get paid to do tests, and people are going to try to find out why somebody died, but he's got the health director sitting right next to him. Has anybody heard anything? And maybe I'm just ignorant. Okay, probably so. I do that on TV. But is there anyone that's heard from the health director that there's at least one case, according to what this guy is saying, of someone who probably ended up with Alzheimer's? Isn't that what he just said? From the aluminum content in their water. She's sitting right next to him.
That's extremely speculative, but it has been tied, and they have said that even aluminum frying pans or things like that used over a period of time, you can intake some of that, and it is believed to have a link to Alzheimer's disease. Listen, the lesson to take out of all of this is test your well. If you have a well, have it tested so you know what's in it, and have the proper filtration, because they make filtration systems that target all kinds of different things. And you should certainly have one that is targeting whatever contaminant is in the well water. Iron is a huge problem. Sulfur is a huge problem in wells in parts of this county. So,
and of course, that water in your well, it's got to come from somewhere. It doesn't just magically appear. It comes from the aquifer. It comes from the river eventually. I mean, that water is flowing from somewhere, and it ends up in your well. Going back to this thing with Diane Hoover, if Diane Hoover does not agree with this guy that this is a concern in our county, she should stand up and slap him. No, don't say that. What's the matter? She's the county health director.
Right. Yes, and so far she is remained silent, although she's probably not the expert on what he's talking about. And
you're supposed to be keeping us safe, and this guy has just basically said that somebody died with Alzheimer's, and it very well may be because of the aluminum in their water. Now, is that sales talk, or should she be setting him straight, or where's the health advisory from the sorry, play the tape.
Yes.
Ingestion poisoning and some skin problems, and the chromium also can cause problems with liver and nerve tissues as
that's nice.
Ingested
it's wonderful.
Elevated levels, and the levels that are allowable for drinking water, although this is a surface water source, are substantially lower than what we're seeing here. Obviously, the concern is what's the plant in Grants Pass going to have to deal with when that stuff gets transported downstream.
Is there any risk? A lot of our residents spend a lot of recreational time in the Rogue. What is the risk to recreational use of Rogue River when that sediment gets down here?
Well, the sediment's going to change the flow patterns in the river body.
That's not the question.
Again, we're trying to establish baselines.
Yeah, he doesn't want to answer.
There's a lot of things in Evans Creek, and even at the confluence of the Rogue River and Evans Creek, in the way the flow channels are currently established. But if one were to take a look at the loading behind the Fielder Dam, there's a 3/4 to a mile of sediment behind that dam, and that's a lot of material that's got to get downstream. Currently, there's a lot of pools on Evans Creek which will be filled. So those residents that have enjoyed, swimming in the water hole will be challenged with not having the water hole. But the concern then also is, we're having these sediment loads which have been constrained by the dam being released downstream. How is that going to affect their enjoyment because of the potential of the elevated aluminum? Kids sipping, get a gulp of water that could have high aluminum in it, or, the skin irritation from the chromium and the arsenic and so forth. Those are issues that are more immediate than extended. These are still issues that we're going to have to address as time goes on. How is it going to affect us down here? Part of the proposal that Diane and I have talked about is we got to know where we're starting. And to this point, I was talking with Senator Berchiger yesterday. He has not gotten much cooperation from the agencies in giving him data. That's been the biggest challenge. And so, does that leave it to us to establish that? I mean, it's going to hurt. I mean, it's going to be affecting us over time. So that's what we were taking a look at. There's a lot of things to consider.
What agencies are you trying to get information from? Is it from the Corps of Engineers or
From
resources?
DEQ, NOAA, ODF&W. He could give you the full list.
And Commissioner Walker, I shared with you the letter from the governor's office related to the Fielder Dam removal. And also I had said lengthy query to the EPA regarding this issue. So we have tried to demonstrate due diligence even before the dam got pulled out, to say, you know, who's in charge, who's ultimately responsible for the quality of the water after the dam's removed. So I really think that I appreciate the fact that Eric took the initiative to go out there and take, you know, get us on a starting path to determine what our baseline is, and then my opinion that we should do periodic assessments of the water as the sediment flows downstream, so we can know what's going on.
My pause
Right
for a
now, we
second.
don't even really know.
My guess is the sediment is probably moving.
Yep.
Okay. Look, want to explain to people, when I say that we're going to put a more beautiful copy and audio is going to be better, we're experiencing a little bit of reverberation here. You can hear that. The details are still important. I just want to be sure to let you know that. I'm going to say one more thing about Eric Schaafsma. Seems like a great guy. He's running a company. He wants to make his profits. But this thing about, look, sorry, but he wants to establish a baseline. Now, he already has a client that's been paying him to establish a baseline up there. And he just said that the city probably has a baseline down here. And you heard him describe how you need a baseline at both places. Okay, it kind of sounds, and I know I'm no expert, kind of sounds like we already have that, Eric. And yes, periodic testing, absolutely. But the idea, the first thing is, let's establish a base. You've got one, and you've already been paid for it, Eric. And we got one down here, and the city's already paid for it, Eric. And so you're going to do what? Now, okay, so God bless him, go and make a profit. But that just doesn't seem to add up. And I'll try not to be too hard on the guy. It's the last thing I'm going to say. But something about that just doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, but you know, listen. Okay, you know, you pull up in your '49 Dodge Power Wagon, and you just dropped a drive line out of it, and a guy comes by who just fixed one just like it for a guy up the street, and you know, but you still need yours fixed, and he's saying, "Hey, I can do that for you." I don't see the problem here.
You're going to pay for it.
Sure, he's in business to make.
I understand that we're going to pay for it, and the commissioners, man, he's already got a done deal. He had them at hello. Okay, that's going to be fine. He's going to do that. I guess the only thing I'd like to know is, can you please just confess to us that you've got some idea of how much danger we're in or we're not in, because people have families to think about. They've got children. Those children, people may wish to go on the rogue. I mean, it's all supposed to be about how we're a tourist economy, right? How far up can they go before they're in danger? Oh, you got to stay within Josephine County because we're paying to have a study done. Great. Stay within Josephine County then. But would you just please tell us what the danger is? Stop holding back on what I'm going to do a study. No, just give us an indication, please. That's all.
But hang on a second. Clearly, these Water Watch people who took the dam out or who pushed to have the dam taken out, have some permit or some affiliation with a state or federal agency that assisted in streamlining this process for them. Okay. Well, I would assume that being that this is contamination coming off of that, getting into the Rogue River, which is a major tributary there into the Pacific Ocean, I would think that they would step in and do some of this monitoring themselves, for crying out loud.
So let's just go down through the list. DEQ probably has all the numbers, okay? They probably do. EPA probably has the numbers, but they're not sharing it with us either, according to what we just heard. Water Watch may have the numbers, but they're not sharing it with us. This guy has at least the numbers upstream. The city has at least the numbers downstream. Why isn't anybody sharing this with us? Why don't they just tell us, just say, okay, look, this isn't everything you're going to need to know. This is not periodic testing. How can it be periodic testing? It hasn't been done yet. But here's where we are at the moment. Would somebody please step forward? And this guy has some of it. And DEQ has some of it. And Water Watch should have all of it. And the city has some of it. Would you just please tell us what the heck is going on, so we know whether it's okay to go down to, the bottom of the bridge and swim around? Yes, probably so. But how far upstream can we go and still not be in danger? And do those people up in that creek area, Evans Creek, should they just say to their kids, don't go to the old swimming hole? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want to know?
Yeah, absolutely.
People invite you on up.
I would.
Hey, come on up and swim in the swimming hole. We're up in Evans Creek. No, I think I got to wash my hair. Oh, you can do that here. No, thanks. I want to keep my hair. I get the idea. Make lots of money, hold government information secret, take out dams and don't share. I understand everybody has a different motivation. I think they're not so nice motivations, but would you please at least have, as we're doing tonight, the motivation to tell people what the heck is going on?
Okay, but let's say, if you're the commissioners and you're sitting in this room talking to this guy about this stuff, wouldn't you think, and they would be well advised to check with the EPA, check with, authorities that regulate the river, and, some of these agencies, and see if they have some of this information before they go paying for it.
Absolutely.
That would be wise.
Yeah, and
that's easy to do. And listen, this is becoming a fairly large local issue, and so some of these, these people should be involved to begin with, and certainly should be involved at this point.
Well, it's a little frustrating
and know what's going on.
That this guy is going to take. Okay, look, I know I seem too tough on this one guy. Thank you for giving us information, buddy. Thank you very much. But it's going to take him till September 8th, which is like 2 weeks from now, to come up with the proposal to talk to the committee. They're going to say yes, to come up with the proposal of how much money can be made off of this deal. What is this a health concern or not? Here's the question. Do you want to be invited up to Evans Creek to get in the old watering hole? Do you really want to? Oh, here's some water straight from Evans Creek, and now at your local Hagen store. I don't shop there. But would you like some of that? I think probably not. And if the health director cares enough to have this guy come in at the last moment and not tell anybody he's coming, could you please tell us what's up? What's happening? Don't hold it back from us. Here's our preliminary information. Well, they might panic people. Maybe they should. Arsenic? Aluminum?
Yeah.
Chromium 6? Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but arsenic is, fairly commonly found in even well water. So it isn't that uncommon. It's the level that's the issue.
Well, he's talking about the levels and how it's way up above where it should be.
Where he tested the sediment itself, and the water that had a high turbidity level.
Right. Probably not spread that over a chocolate cupcake. I get the idea.
Yes, but that is totally different from where it mixes with other fresh water and then finally hits the Rogue and all this kind of stuff.
Well, in case you're losing patience with me interrupting this, or with Mike putting up with me interrupting this, at the end he says, well, it may be another 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years before it gets all down here. Okay, good. But this is a long river, and it is in our area, and it might be nice to know how far upstream you should go before turning around and coming back.
Yes.
Go ahead.
rather slowly at this time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm making an assumption here because we haven't had a lot of rain and the water's low. But once we have rain and water starts draining into that and pushing it downward, so do you expect that there's going to be perhaps a peak time that that sediment will arrive into our area?
Right, and that's something that I'm working with my team of hydrologists. We're looking at all that and we're going to do some geospatial analysis,
Okay.
which is part of the proposal. Trying to find out how long do we anticipate it'll take to get here. Yeah.
Yeah, because you said there was like a mile of sediment, and so that, I presume that by mile you meant that was the length of the distance behind the dam.
Yes.
Like 80 years of how deep is the sediment?
This is the reservoir as of last week. There's no water.
No.
Now, according to evolutionary,
Driven in there.
that was fish, organ fish and game.
I asked
The
for that
birds
picture,
are having
of
a feast
course.
too because of all this sunlight. They've left high and dry, but there's
And of course, I mean, even for some of these raptors that might come and swoop down, what are they ingesting with these fish they're taking out too? You know?
that's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of documented species in that area which really enjoyed that dam.
Mm-hmm.
Otters and beavers and golden eagles or bald eagles, blue jays, a ton of all kinds of mammals.
Turtles?
Yes.
The Oregon pond turtle?
And anyways, there's not a lot of water there for them now. But all this is sediment. It's, of course, on top, I show some sediment profiles as I'll take some photos when they're taking out the dam, but it's going to be transported. It's a lot of material. It's going to totally change Evans Creek, and it's going to totally change once it hits the Rogue River, what the flow channels are going to look like. So it'd be good to know. It'd be good to monitor it. It'd be good to be able to evaluate it. I know that science is not based on guess or assumptions. Science is based upon data and that which we know, and then we can make our decisions upon that. But currently, we're kind of empty-handed at the moment.
So, and the thing is, and this is the bone of contention, is that on what science was the removal of the dam based? You know, the impact of what's going to happen.
That's a good
on
question.
What science was
Yep.
there to demonstrate this is a high propensity, that this is going to be the consequence of removing this dam or whatever. I don't think there was too much consideration of that. Anecdotal talk about what might happen or what won't happen. I mean, everything
Want
is
to
what
see the
won't happen,
study?
not that it's not going to impact anything.
Yeah.
You know they had to do a
Oh,
study.
yeah, that's true.
Sure.
But if you have all these years of this settling, of these different chemicals and that kind of stuff, and I'm not, not talking about bug spray, but I mean, talking about all the mercury and all those other things. The settlement is there. If we have a gully wash or rain, now what happens to all those chemicals that are in that? They are going to go somewhere, and somewhere for us is downstream. Downstream is Grants Pass, Josephine County.
Yeah.
And that's the concern.
Yeah.
Were there tests and then subsequent monitoring on the Savage Raccoon? There were none that I know of. That's why I'm asking. I mean, I think they did a few core samples kind of thing before they took it out, but has there been a monitoring since? Of course, that's
It's not that I know of.
Not
I
that I
mean,
know of
even
either.
the other thing that we were talking about is, we don't even have any temperature data loggers in Evans Creek. What's the temperature there? What is the potential fish habitat of Evans Creek? Maybe Fish and Game has data. Maybe DEQ has data, but as of yet, we haven't seen it.
I think this would be a really good example of how we can, from the public health side, monitor the results of this. Because you've taken a test like immediately, and then the continuous monitoring. I think that would be a report that would be necessary for us to have when it comes to the removal of any other dams, because all of these are on a rogue watershed. And, or, you know, Applegate goes to the rogue and et cetera. So the rogue watershed, when you're talking about all this, I've seen the map, all the little dams that are out there on these creeks that have been built over the years for irrigation or whatever. And there's no data on what happens when you take them out. I haven't found any. If there is any out there, tell me. You know?
Mike, pause for a
But
second.
I think that since
it's a good point to bring up, because I wasn't even thinking about that. But how many dams have we pulled out in the last 10 or 15 years? And is anybody looking at this?
All right,
what it does?
One of the important points is here. I do not believe that this commissioner spent a lot of time looking for the data. I mean, she says this kind of stuff all the time. She didn't spend any time looking for the data, but the data does have to exist. It has to be somewhere because,
of course,
I mean, if you decide to paint your barn, we've been talking about this, orange or something, well, there's going to be an environmental impact study about that. You mean to tell me that there's no environmental impact study from taking out a dam? Of course there was. Where is it?
Boy, you know, that's a really good question. Although I tend to think that the mindset of government doesn't think about the impact of something like that in the same way that they think about the impact of you building a garage 2 miles from site of the river.
If our county government wants to put in a helipad at Ivy Airport, they have to have an environmental impact statement, an EIS, about what would happen with the fuel that would be dropping that helipad. That's a government building something that the other government's telling them what to do. And so here is a government agency that's taking out a dam. Of course they had to do an environmental impact statement. They're not just going to do it and say, I mean, as much as you may believe the government's an evil institution or something, there's no way that someone that belongs to the Army Corps of Engineers is not going to at least think about what's going to happen once you take that out.
I would hope so. However, I think that there is sort of a leaning towards, you know, they want to take these dams out because it's good for the fish and all this kind of stuff. And that is their primary driver, not the environmental impact of taking the dam out. You know, I mean, that's it. It's the whole drive behind it. I hope you're right about that.
Well,
I hope you're right. And
we'd like to see it.
Really
the
should
idea
be out there.
That it doesn't exist, or Cheryl's been looking for it for years, like she was looking for the economic development. Yeah, right. So, but by the way, Keith did say, I hope that you caught this. He did say, well, it sounded like he said when the rafters swoop in and grab up the fish. No, he doesn't mean the raptors, the birds that eat the fish. So here we're concerned about birds. Right? Raptors are going to swoop down. They're not going to swoop down. But what about the spotted owl? Do spotted owls ever eat fish? Well, I think they probably do. So what if a spotted owl swoops down, eats a fish that's been contaminated by arsenic? Less spotted owls. Well, okay, but despite that,
well, there are birds on the river. There's osprey that you see if you ever take the jet boats. You'll see that there's osprey and eagles and other types of birds that do feed off the fish in the river. So I mean, it's a valid concern.
These guys have got EPA has to be concerned at least a little bit about, if they're not concerned about humans, they must be concerned about the birds that eat the fish, that eat this. I mean, they have to. There's data somewhere. There's going to be data. Okay, we're going to lose X number of thousands of fingerlings or whatever that happened the other day. Go ahead.
Right.
Listen, this whole tape will be available to you without comment, and then you can watch it and you can say, I like it better when there's no comment. Well, just enjoy yourself at home all by yourself and just drink a bottle of wine and just relax. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes.
A whole bottle.
But then you'll miss all the information because you'll be hammered.
This is one that started right at the very beginning and be good one to keep monitoring. I agree that it needs to be done because that's going to be the first instance of data to substantiate anecdotal claims, complaints, or assertions about what happens when you remove dams.
This guy's set for life.
Let's see what happens when you remove the dam. For fish hatches, I don't think I'm gonna see any fish going up that
Dale.
soon. It's dry.
Well, they're gonna lose any species.
Yeah.
Mudwalkers.
Yeah, the advantage, because the dam was only 3 miles upstream from the confluence with the Rogue River, it's a smaller test area, sampling area, and observation area, which is advantageous to be able to get some serious data. So we'll have an idea of what the proposed cost of that will be in a few weeks. So.
In a few weeks.
On the data from the DEQ or whomever else might be involved in this stuff, is that something that we can somebody request, or do we have to request through some legal arm to say who wants
We can
it?
do it with FOIA if you don't, they don't give it to you.
Well,
FOIA request.
in terms of data, what I received back from my queries to DEQ, there were no numbers involved. It was just more assurances that all proper processes took place.
That's not good enough.
I'd be happy to forward that email from the DEQ with attachments.
I'm not necessarily interested in more assurances. I'd like to see, what do we have? I mean, if they don't have any data, like you're saying, there's no temperature testing, there's no data that pre and initial post. Okay, that's fine. Tell me there's no data.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, on the other hand, at least we know they didn't do any testing. Okay, that's fine. But now, post, who's responsible for doing that testing? Is that incumbent upon the county? Is that incumbent upon DEQ or whomever?
Right.
What's that?
That's for Wally Hicks to look into, and the
to whom do we go?
Yeah.
To find out answers to the questions rather than listening to the world enders or the olive rosy people. I mean, where's that connectivity line? So.
silence.
I mean, something brought in, some places brought in these results of testing in DEQ. I passed that over to Eric. Yeah, it was, I guess, I couldn't read it.
Yeah, the delay makes him basically inaudible.
Yeah, sorry, we'll fix that.
What's he saying there, Dale? Do you remember?
He's saying
Yeah.
once I get reelected, at some point, before we put this out, we'll fix that and we'll boost his audio. See, that's part of what we do is we go through, you highly edited. No, we're trying to make it so you can hear him. I'll boost it up. I'll increase the treble, get rid of some of the bass so that you can hear what the guy is saying.
Yeah. What did he say?
I don't know.
Yeah, what did he say?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I did try to talk to him afterwards. Here's
All
something
right.
that's kind of interesting about this. One other interesting thing outside of this meeting was as soon as Eric Schaafsma got up and left this room, and we're running out of time here, Mike. As soon as he left the room, Wally grabbed onto him and they went off to Wally's office, which makes you wonder, now, wait a minute. This is county legal counsel, and he's vitally interested in talking with Eric Schaafsma about all this. It might be about where do I find that information, but Eric just made it pretty clear that he's not quite sure. Is our county legal counsel believing that somehow, it's a question I'd like to ask Wally, that the county might be potentially held responsible for the health consequences of anything?
Yeah, I can't see that being the case because, the county is not the entity that did this. I doubt that they even were involved in the. I doubt that they were even involved in the permitting process.
No, I don't mean that either. No, not at that stage. The question to me would be, how responsible is the county to do testing now and into the future? Because part of what they're supposed to do is to keep us safe, right? And how much role will the city government, city of Grants Pass, or anyone else downstream be responsible for keeping track of what's coming their way?
Well, and that's why Wally pulled the guy off into the office there and had the conversation with him. His whole job description is mitigate liability. That's his thing. So
I think
Anyway.
that's all we're going to have time for. Sorry, folks, but there wasn't a whole lot more. But he did summarize this by saying that it's probably going to be 5 or 6 years before that sediment gets down here. Well, that comes up on you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so and that's sediment. That's that kind of sediment sitting right out there. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so how much you're going to want to swim in the Rogue River here under the bridge.
Well, and that timetable can vary on what type of winters you have. We are about they describe what we have sitting out in the Pacific Ocean right now as a monster or Godzilla El Nino. That's what they've been saying. It's the Godzilla El Nino, which means that you're going to have in the winter following it, you're going to have very heavy rainfall and above average. And in El Nino years, I remember in California we had just crazy winters, a tremendous amount of rain and flooding and that kind of thing. Now if you get a couple of gully washers like Cheryl Walker was talking about there, where you get 5 or 6 inches of rain happening in one day, and it's coming down there great guns. That stuff's going to be down here before you know it.
So we get a cold winter.
It's not going to take years.
A cold winter due to NAFTA and trade with Canada, and El Nino coming up from Mexico because of trade with Mexico. We're caught in the middle. Thanks a lot, guys.
No.
Blame for NAFTA.
Yes. No, I'm saying do a little study on El Ninos, because what it is that you have a much higher temperature levels out in the Pacific Ocean, and ultimately leads to, when it comes to wintertime, greater precipitation. That is going to happen here because there's more evaporation going on out there. That's breaking it down to very, very oversimplified terms, but that's
what we specialize.
That's what happens. And
yes, we specialize at breaking things
oversimplified
down to
terms.
ridiculous terms. That's right. Okay, now we promise you,
yes,
we're going to keep track of this story to every extent that they'll let us, and we'll keep paying for the information that from the most transparent government in the world, as Simon put it, and we will share that with you as soon as we can. There's nothing in the couple pages that he gave them today that he didn't already say in all of this. And so, you don't need to worry, but we will be sure that we're giving you all the information that we possibly can so that you can understand what's happening here. And if you see Alan Ayers, he can be a bug sometimes, but go pat him on the back and say, thank you, Alan, for talking to us about hexachromium, CR6, hexavalent chromium, and keeping track of that. And next, the city better be thinking about this too. If we're going to get together with the city and spend tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars on making this a tourist mecca, we better spend some money on keeping our people safe as well, because it doesn't just affect Josephine County, buddy. It affects that bridge over Mike's shoulder there. This bridge right here. Mike, stay out of that water in 5 years or sooner.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, I will.